I'm Logan Crawford, and right now on Spotlight, take a look for a label that says Made in the USA. I bet you can't find it. You know what the label says. It says Made in China or some other part of Asia. Well, as you can imagine, this has a devastating impact on Western economies. Our next guest, Nigel Southway, has written a book on this subject. It is called Take Back Manufacturing, an Imperative for Western Economies. We're delighted to have Nigel on the show today, and we thank the team at Sweet Spire Literature Management for helping us put Nigel in the spotlight. Nigel, thank you so much for joining me.
Welcome. Glad to be here.
The key word is right in your title. It's an imperative for Western economies. We need to start manufacturing again. How do we start building in the USA and Western Europe once more?
Well, first of all, the book is a long journey. I came back from China, so I've got some personal experience of offshoring manufacturing because I was in China for 6 years from 20 until 2010. And when I came back, I was horrified with the devastation I'd been part of in causing. And we formed an advocacy group in Canada here. And this book is a continuation of that advocacy effort that we put in. And really, it's for government policymakers to understand the details of how we take it back. And every citizen really needs to understand the implications. And really, they should read this book before they vote next time, because it's that serious. And quite frankly, the book is about where we were, what happened, what went wrong, what we should do differently, and just the structure of the kinds of improvements in our business and the way in which we should run the numbers to do the reshoring activity, and then also how government should respond to assist industry in getting it done.
Nigel, it's almost mind-boggling that we are doing business almost exclusively with our enemy. I mean, basically, you have a communist regime that is polluting the environment like crazy with all their manufacturing, where the tensions rise all the time between the United States and other parts of Western Europe and China. And they're our trading partner. It just leaves us so vulnerable, doesn't it?
Well, globalized manufacturing was unplanned. I mean, there were no plans. It was a free trade, let it hang out, go do it, just get it done. We all rushed over there. It felt good at the time to open up new markets, but it was really a bad deal. And Trump was really right about quite a few of these things, and that's why he got to the White House, because quite frankly, the average Joe in the street gets it. It seems to be more our leadership doesn't understand the implications of giving away our prosperity. We're literally giving away our prosperity, but not just jobs, but also trade balance and just the integrity of being able to manufacture what you consume. There's a term now called friendshoring, which is halfway there. But really, we need a trade bloc that looks very hard at making sure we import far less from people that have no interest in our stability. Just ask the Germans about Russian gas to get that straight. So there's a lot going on. It's to do with geopolitics, economic balance. Interest rates are going to go up. It's going to make inventory that's trapped in those long supply chains almost impossible to make money with. So there's many reasons. There's a list of reasons, more than ever before, that we should bring manufacturing back and make it part of our economy. It always made sense, and we lost the thought. I think we lost the plot in where we've been in the last 30 years. Never too late. A lot of people say it's too late. Never too late to do the right thing. And bringing manufacturing back is going to help our prosperity. We certainly can't do anything but make it an imperative.
There would, I presume, have to be a price adjustment, that some prices will go up because they are manufactured either in the United States, North America, or Western Europe versus Asia, right?
Quite frankly, when you run the numbers, which we've been doing, there is no advantage in low-cost labor offshore. And the more you automate, which we should do anyway, to the latest technology, it will actually take less issue with labor being less in Asia. already in quite a few commodities, it's cheaper to make it at home. We have to recapitalize. One of the issues is you've now got to reverse jets and recapitalize. Look at the industry which I grew up in, which is electronics, the semiconductor industry. It's coming back. Heavy plant, white products in GE are all now, they're not in Canada, but they're in the northern states, but they've gone to the southern states and Mexico. So within USMCA, the numbers show quite a lot of opportunity for it to be cheaper to manufacture locally. So it's a myth that it's cheaper offshore. It will be for a while until we recapitalize. But it's a question of strategy now to bring back the stuff that makes sense to bring back, and then slowly move our supply chains to be shorter. Long supply chains are expensive for many reasons. They builds inventory, and the fallacy is labor in Asia is getting more expensive as well. And when you add the pollution issues of trading with people that haven't got manufacturing wrapped up and the controls of manufacturing, and you add those costs to the whole game, we definitely should stay home with manufacturing.
Are labor unions a obstacle, or can they be a partner in all this?
Absolutely a partner. They get it. They understand. There's a lot of people I talk to who intelligently, in the clinches, there'll be some issues, but as long as we communicate and we look at the big picture, they're an asset because they'll organize some of the educational needs we have. We got an undertrained workforce. We've got an overeducated and undertrained workforce. We need to get back and balance up the educational system so it's a balance of education, training, and experience. We got a lot of young. I teach at a bunch of different universities on manufacturing engineering, and the biggest issue is getting experience. You can educate people, but can you train them and give them the right experience? So as we move forward, as we expand our industrial capability, we got to bring the people with us. Unions will buy that very well.
Yeah, the labor force seems to be lacking right now in the US. It almost seems like it's hard to get people to do jobs at all. So motivating people, training people, educating them with in areas other than university track degrees might be a start, right?
Well, I grew up in Britain, as you probably can tell from the accent, and I did a full British engineering apprenticeship at 16 onwards, which was very, it combined education, training, and experience right at the get-go, and it was paid. That's and the UK is trying to put that back in place, by the way, similar to what the Germans have had for some decades. We need in North America a similar approach, because we put people in colleges and universities, and then we try to find them a job. We need to reverse that, and I talk about it in the book. We need to introduce them to an industry early and then make sure they're moved along so that they have careers. And that's going to change. That's a change in educational culture that we need to address. And government needs to be very engaged in that. We can't leave that to industry. They can't afford to do it on their own. It needs to be a education, industry, government thing that needs to be combined. There's some work being done on that, by the way, but it needs a long way to go yet.
Canada's making some strides. Tell me about that.
I wish it was true. I mean, we're probably worse off than the US in terms of our political will as far as manufacturing is concerned. And the reason is we've always had resources to fall back on. And those aren't paying the way anymore. We actually now, in the last decade, have a negative trade balance, which is unheard of, even with resources in the game. So we have to be part of the journey as well as the US. Some of our colleges are grappling with what I just described. Our government's okay, but it needs to really get its political will in the right place. It's more, unfortunately, all our politicians are more concerned about who we are rather than how we're doing. And we need to change that bias. We need to start looking at what pays the rent, not what keeps every minority group interested and happy.
Exactly.
So
the division gives them power, but it disempowers the rest of us. That's for sure.
Yeah, we got to get on with it. And we obviously we cannot continue to survive with high interest rates with long supply chains. So it's a given that we need to do more, make much more of what we consume.
Is the climate change movement an obstacle?
Actually, I was asked that question. What was the biggest impediment to manufacturing coming back in the Western world? I would have said initially political will, but I will now say it's our approach to climate change. It's going to be an impediment. We have to rethink our approach to climate change. A lot of people I talk to are not sure that the science is settled, and that we need a little bit more dialogue as to what our policy should be. I think we may have overreacted. We need to look at our energy supply strategy in concert with climate change and come to get everybody around the table and rethink our approach to climate change. It is an impediment to obviously getting manufacturing back and putting the energy in place. I mean, let's be fair, everybody's going to want electricity, and that's not set up for a lot of industry to feed off of right now.
And it's kind of a shell game. If you dump all of the manufacturing in Asia, where they have few environmental constraints, they're polluting the environment, rapidly. I mean, I've been to
Absolutely.
China. I feel like there's an ongoing fire at all times
Absolutely.
in that country. It's amazing.
Pollution's a bigger issue than climate change, and it's worse if you globalize unintelligently. Of course, we want them to share in the spoils of a modern society, but you've got to do it in an organized way, and we haven't been. We've transferred our wealth, and by the way, globalization's increased 8 times since 1980, but the global wealth's only increased 3 times. So we've used it as a wealth transfer system, which looks good, but it doesn't help in the end because nobody gets wealthy. Manufacturing offshore is a bit difficult to do without a lot of waste and a lot of pollution. Just because they don't have the same control levels we've got. Now we got to relearn how to make sure we don't go backwards when we bring manufacturing back, so that pollution's managed, but that's part of the game.
You see cities all over North America that have been absolutely decimated, that they were once mill towns, they were manufacturing hubs, and now they're ghost towns.
I talk about that in the book. We called it the Rust Belt. That's what it's called. And it's unfortunately it's destroyed the infrastructure, not just of an industry, but of the way of life. Some people worked in small towns. There was a community of manufacturing there. There was a supply chain. There was clusters of manufacturing. Those have been eroded. It depends on the industry. If you look at the metal bashing industry, it's probably okay. Electronics was completely completely transferred. The plastics industry is still here, but a lot of the supply industry of chemicals and so on have gone offshore. Food industry is very scary. You start digging into the supply chain of food, and it gets to be very concerning in terms of how much is off versus how much is onshore.
Exactly. Now, this is your wheelhouse. This is your expertise. Tell us a little bit about your background.
Grew up in England. I'm from Bristol, England. That's the West Coast accent. I started at 16 as an engineering apprenticeship. Finished at 22 with a degree in electronic engineering, but I was a manufacturing engineer, and came to Canada to work on the space shuttle arm. Canada did the part for the space shuttle, which I was part of. That's why I came to Canada in the late 70s. And I ended up in Motorola in the 80s, which was the place to be in high-tech electronics. And we designed a different way to manufacture. That's where the concepts of lean manufacturing and Six Sigma came from. And so I went off after Motorola as a consultant, and I wrote my first book. This is my second book on lean thinking, on lean manufacturing, which was published in '92. And I've been using that book to help and assist industry on lean thinking and get productivity improvement. So I'm a productivity improvement expert, and I've got my own consulting practice since about 2000, doing that. I've been all over the world doing that. Back to China. I was in Mexico running a plant for a couple of years. I was actually in Turkey last week doing some work there. And so I've seen the world, and I've seen what manufacturing can be, and I'm certainly concerned about where it is. And that's the reason for the writing the book. I think it's important.
It is important. It's vital. As you say, it's imperative in the title of your book. It's interesting you worked for Motorola, because that could almost be a case study that a company that was at the forefront of so much when it comes to personal communications. I don't even know if it's in business anymore, right?
A lot of it got bought off. It was decided to sell it off, but in its day, it was a significant chip manufacturer. It made
Yeah.
a lot of the smart chips, and of course the whole electronics industry morphed over time. But a lot of us that were there are now senior members of businesses elsewhere. So it was a great stamping ground to be in the 80s. And of course, we changed the way we manufactured. We didn't have any books to read. We wrote the books ourselves. Um, and so it was an exciting time. So I've been in manufacturing 55 years, just to document the timeline. And I've seen it all. And I want to put something back. I think a lot of us at my age, when I talk to people, the baby boomers, we're exiting.
Mm.
We're very concerned about the replacement of ourselves. And that's why we got to get on with this so that we relife the younger folks. And the big wish is that we make I thought the first day I walked into a manufacturing plant, I was excited, and I'm
Mm.
still excited. I want the young folks to have that same discipline of thought when they join manufacturing. And it can be, we want our young people to embrace this, otherwise it won't work. And we got to get that culture, that maker culture, back into our society. That's
Absolutely.
part of the game.
It's tied to the American spirit for sure. It's tied to the spirit of Western Europe as well and North America.
Yep.
It's vital to bring back manufacturing to the United States. As just as a final question, if there was a great first step that a government could take to bringing manufacturing back to their country, what would it be?
Learn about manufacturing. Unfortunately, I was in China, and every single senior member of the politicians that I met, the senior party members, understood manufacturing. First step, we got to educate our leadership on what manufacturing should be. And that's important so they can internalize the plans that we'd like to put forward. And that's why they should read the book, one of the reasons. But unfortunately, we've become very uninterested in manufacturing as a leadership, and that needs to be recovered. That's the first thing to do, and then we can talk about the issues that we've got. And that's probably where I'd start is talk to the leadership, the people that do have to make the decisions. Even people in the boardroom sometimes haven't got the manufacturing depth. They're relying on others, and so we got to get more maker culture orientated, and then we can go somewhere.
Do you feel it's a little bit of an elitist mindset that we're above this? We're no longer a manufacturing economy, that they can do that elsewhere in less developed nations?
Yeah, it's perceived as dark, dirty, dangerous, smelly, and difficult, right? And we got to get over that and realize that it's important. And when you really, when you really walk through a modern manufacturing plant and talk to the people, and the engineers and just everybody there, you'll realize that it's a community that's important to the economy, and that's something that our leadership needs to get their head around. They understand it in China, like I say. After a plant tour there, the leadership said, "So what can I do to help you?" Here they don't even understand the questions to ask. So
Absolutely.
it's right. The guys at the shop floor know the game. Okay, they understand the issue. Middle management, our middle strata, our the general population gets the problem. We haven't generated that at the political level, and I do believe it's because we've got that elitist view that, well, somebody else can do that.
Absolutely, absolutely. I live in the Northeast, actually in a community that is a hub of manufacturing, not far from Pratt Whitney, not far
Mm.
from Electric Boat. And I can tell you the people that work at those jobs have solid jobs. They make a good income. They contribute to the community, and it's a wonderful environment. So in the places where manufacturing is still thriving, it's a great asset for the community.
Yeah, always will be. I mean, you've got to add value to you can't get rich on services. That's good. You can't get rich on financializing your community. That just moves money around. The only way to is to make what you consume, and also have security of your resources. Make sure you don't waste them by doing it yourself. The other thing is the best way to solve pollution is to manufacture the pollution in your backyard. You'll very quickly get rid of it. So as we localize manufacturing, we can control pollution better than when some third world country is generating it. We don't even know about it. Um,
Absolutely.
so
The
there's a
name of the
lot going
book,
on.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, so there's a lot going on, a lot of facets that make it sensible that we take this back.
Absolutely. Like I said, you go into China and the air is almost unbreathable
Yeah, I
because
was
there are
there.
no
Yeah,
emission controls at all.
I was there in 20 from 24 to 2004 to 2010, and we had a significant, pollution was there, and it's not just the air, the waterways, and
Yeah.
they don't have much water. The other thing is crazy. The one thing you need a lot of to manufacture is water, and we've got a lot in the Great Lakes, fresh water. I mean.
Yep.
They got none in China. So we've moved all our manufacturing to Asia that has very little water. And in North America, we got the water for manufacturing and we're not using it. So there's a lot disconnects between what we did and what we should have done.
Again, one more final question. This is a fascinating interview, so I'm keeping it going. Is Clinton a big part of the problem here? Bill Clinton, did he start a lot of this globalization and losing our manufacturing jobs?
If I had to blame anybody, and I don't want to I do mention his name in the book. Yeah, he didn't reset after the Reagan years. That's basically the issue, and that was a mistake. And he focused on other stuff. But listen, every single politician since then, other than Trump, hasn't talked and bellied up to the bar and looked at this problem face on. They've all avoided it, all of them, every single administration, except for Trump, in fairness to him.
Absolutely. The name of the book is Take Back Manufacturing, an Imperative for Western Economies. It is written by Nigel Southway, who is absolutely encyclopedic in his knowledge on this topic. I highly recommend this book. It is a Bible for American business because this blueprint that he lays out must be implemented in the United States if we are going to survive as a nation, in my humble opinion. Nigel Southway, thank you so much for joining us here today on Spotlight.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
And to the folks at home, I'm Logan Crawford, thanking you for your time this time. Until next time on Spotlight.